When it comes to entrepreneurship, things are always changing, let alone the fact that I am in social media. Like, social media changes like every couple of minutes, you know? But as an entrepreneur, there's just always things that are happening, and sometimes it can knock the wind out of you. And so today I really want to have a honest conversation about what to do when things continue to change. Welcome back to another episode of the King and Kelly podcast, where we talk about all things business, marketing, and all the things. If you have not already hit subscribe to the podcast, be sure to do so. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button. That way, every single time we have a new episode, you know, because we have a new episode on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I was talking about this in the intro about what to do when things are changing. And the truth is that things are always changing. And I'm going to be raw, real, and honest as I always am. Things are always changing in my business. And the honest to God, my initial thought is when things are changing, it's a lot. It could mess with your finances. It could mess with your team. It could mess with morale, your energy, your creativity, so much. Okay. And so I really want to talk to you from the standpoint of where I have been and what has been happening in my business and the things that I am doing and have been doing as I'm having a lot of changes, okay? So one of the first things that I have been doing is, and it's very, very intentional, it's very, very strategic, is I am surrounding myself with entrepreneurs, right? But not just people who are building a business, people that are positive, that are reading books, listening to podcasts, that are growing and that are solution oriented, that are problem solvers, right? Because when everything is changing, it's extremely uncomfortable. It's very scary. There's so much, right? And one of the last things you need is a negative Nelly, right? Like, listen, you don't need a negative Nelly. What is going on is negative or not, or stressful enough. You don't need someone else that is adding to that pressure or that stress or frustration, okay? So it is really important that you are getting around people who are entrepreneur, where they do exactly what you do, or just, they're business owners, and they are positive people that are solution oriented. So what is happening in my business, right? So for the last 3.5 years, there's so much more to me than just TikTok, but we focused on teaching people how to use TikTok for business. And when the US government talked about banning TikTok, I was not afraid that TikTok was going to get banned, but I just kept, pushing and pushing and pushing. But we started losing a lot of money. And when I say a lot, I mean like multiple six figures. Yeah, a lot of money, because our customer was no longer buying. What does that mean? That means that when we would launch our course and sell whatever, they just weren't buying anything related to TikTok for like 6 months. Like, let's let that sink in. 6 months that what was normally our main bread and butter was not coming in. And when all of that was happening, I was thrown into a frenzy. Not a frenzy of that I was afraid that TikTok was going to get banned. No, it was our money is being depleted. What do? We cannot continue pushing this agenda with TikTok if our customer is saying, I'm not going to invest in it. Because what I think was happening with our customer was, and it could be you, is that if you hear that the government's going to ban TikTok, the last thing you're going to do is invest in something that is going to go away. So you're going to wait to find out if it's going to be okay before you actually invest. And that's what I felt like what was happening. And so I found myself like grabbing at straws in terms of trying to find people who could help me in a sense. And then I just said, okay, wait, y'all know I'm a Jesus girl. I was like, one, let me go to Jesus, right? And then two, I'm a part of an organization called Entrepreneur Organization Accelerator. And basically, okay, so it comes off of a group called Entrepreneurs Organization, EO. And so in EO, you have to make a minimum of $1 million a year, like minimum, and then up. And then EOA is you have to make a minimum of $250,000 a year up to $999,000. I don't make $1 million a year, so I'm in EOA. And I had this moment where I said, okay, I have this coach. Let me reach out to my coach. And my coach gave me some tips or whatever. Then he said, I need to connect you with people who have $1 million digital marketing firms that can actually give you some guidance and some wisdom. And so I ended up getting connected with them and just hearing them and listening to them. And like, they didn't tell me exactly what to do, but what they did do was they were just like, dude, you are sitting on a gold mine. You are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, keep going. And it gave me just the motivation to just keep going. But then as a business, I had to go, all right, what is it that we offer outside of TikTok marketing that is me, my 20 years of being an entrepreneur? And then I was like, okay, well, let's focus on this. Now, what that meant was that our team, who was used to focusing on A, B, and C, had to completely shift and focus on STU, or whatever in our company, which meant brand new processes, brand new everything, web pages, funnel, all of this stuff. And it was intense. It was so intense for like 3 months, like intense. And we basically had to build in 45 days what would have taken us a year. Okay, a year, because we had to make so many quick shifts for the change in our business or whatever. And then now our business is changing a more, but not in a frenzy, right? Our business is changing more because we are seeing a demand. Like right now, like for the last 3.5 years, the number one thing people have wanted from me is not just teach them, but they have wanted me to actually revise their content. So here's my content. Can you do something with it? And then can you manage my social media accounts, right? And so we have just not been doing that ever. And so the more I've been looking at my business, I'm like, I love my business. It's amazing. But I could see this really big opportunity that I have in front of me where I can build out a multi-million-dollar company servicing the people that I already serve with courses that don't want to manage their own social media. And we can do that with the team that we have, and then we can grow that, which means change. Okay. So with that regard, I am like, okay, here's a new change. What is it that I need in order to make this new change? I said, I need somebody that has done it. Again, I went back to people, and now I have this mentor who he just sold his agency for like millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I started calling him daddy. I was like, I don't mean it negatively. You know what I mean, dude? And I said, you are actually the person that can help me with what it is that I'm trying to do. Here's where I am. Here's what I know. I will not have a problem getting a client. That is not the issue. As a person that is integrous and operates in excellence, I want to make sure I have my systems, processes, and all this stuff down so that when I start getting clients, I'm not scrambling to get things done. I already have these things done. And so he was like, absolutely, I can help you with this, and this, right? And so that was me getting that. Then what I had to do was I had to go internally and go, okay, what is it that I got to change in my mind with the way that I sell and market to be able to obtain the clients that, we want to obtain? And so I did that. And then I said, okay, what processes or systems do we need to start putting in place to do this? And so I was just like, okay, let me get on Zoom. And so I get on Zoom, I record a long video, dry erase board, all this stuff. But this is what we're doing, how we're going to do it, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then I give it to my assistant and she will turn it into a process. Then we have to create an internal process of this goes to this and this, all that type of stuff. And then we can start to sell, right? And so in the midst of everything changing, I have to make sure that I have what I need, that I can have my heart settled, that I can then communicate what we're trying to do to my team and let them know how that's going to impact them positively, because it's not going to be negative. And then the shift that we're going to have to make in order for that to happen. And but this is me as a strategic planner of okay, do all these things. And that helps things go a little bit smoother and lets people know what is going on, what to expect, what in the world is happening. Does that make sense? But also when things start to change, it's like, it's very uncertain. Like I remember when I was going from having a brand design agency to teaching TikTok marketing. Oh my God, I was freaking out. And I know some of you guys are like, freaking, that's just my word, freaking out. And if I was in church, I would say spazzing out. But people say, don't say spaz. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. Freaking out. That's my word, And so when I was doing that, I was like having this whole situation that was going on with like the fear of not having enough money, the fear of like just all of this stuff. And the thing is that one of the things to know is that change is always going to happen. Change is inevitable. Things are always changing. We are always changing and evolving. And it is really important for us to know that things are going to change, but also to try to plan for things to change, right? And meaning that for example, if you have a team, letting them be aware of what is going on, when it's going on. So back in November, we knew the U.S. economy was starting to have trouble. So I had a honest come to Jesus meeting with everybody on my team. And I said, here's what's happening in the U.S. We are currently not affected, but anything could change. And I just need you to understand, if something changes, I have to call you in and we have to make some changes, right? And then when everything was going down with TikTok, I said, guys, I brought them in on a call. I said, right now we are okay, but we are having some challenges. We might have a point where I have to actually have you guys working a lot less so we can save money for what it is that we have to rebuild. And then when that time came, I said, all right, guys, let's pull back just a little bit so we can recreate our processes and then we can go back full force. But instead of me just springing that on them, I involved them in November. So it was like everybody was aware of what was happening, when it was happening, but also my intentions and what I was doing to make sure that everybody was going to be okay. Okay. So when things are changing, it's really important that there's an open line of communication. Okay. That could be in the business and it could be in your personal life, right? So I'm not dating anyone, but I have friends. And when things have started to go down, I've been like, hey, I just want to reach out and tell you, here's what's going on. I'm not looking for any kind of solutions or anything. I just want to involve you in my life with this thing that is actually happening because this is a hard thing I'm dealing with. And I just want you to be aware of it so you can kind of support me. Then the good friends will say, well, how can I support you? And I'll say, if you see anything, you hear anything, any resources, let me know, but just don't try to fix it. Right. And which is extremely, extremely helpful, when you're able to reach out to people and tell them what you're in need of. Right. But also when things start to change, sometimes you are going to have to slow down in order to speed up. Okay. Sometimes you are going to have to slow down in order to speed up. And what that means is that you might have to pull back. Right. Just like I was saying that when everything was going on with TikTok and the government and all that, I was like, all right, let me look at what we're doing. Like I started looking at, here's all the things we're spending money on. And we were wasting money on so much stuff. Like we've used GoDaddy for like so many years and we paid them so much money on a monthly basis. I mean, so it was an ungodly amount of money we were paying to GoDaddy for hosting, SSL, and all this stuff. And so during that time, I started looking at where we're spending our money. And I had talked to my tech person and was just like, what do you think about this system? Is there anything else? And then I posted out on TikTok and was just talking about the bad experiences I've been having with GoDaddy. And people started telling me that you should actually be with Hostinger. I had never heard of Hostinger. So I said, let me look into Hostinger. Oh my God, I can pay this one rate and it covers everything. Whereas with GoDaddy, I was spending all of this money for the same thing that I would spend this with Hostinger. And everybody online was saying great things about Hostinger. So I was like, we moved to Hostinger. Right? Then I was paying all this money for Slack. I love Slack, but we were paying a lot of money for Slack. And I was like, what else is out there that we could use? And they were like, Google Workspace. We're already paying for the emails and all that. Well, let's just use Google Workspace and we can use Google Meet and and all this stuff. And I was like, So then we shifted to Google Workspace, right? And it was just all these things that we were paying money for like absolutely no reason, right? And I pulled back on all that, right? Then I was looking at, okay, I'm paying, let's just say my podcast manager, I was paying them all this money per month to manage my podcast, but the podcast still at this point isn't making us any money. I love doing the podcast, but it doesn't yield us any money right now. So I was like, Kenya, you're paying all this money out for this thing that isn't making you any money, but you could actually keep doing this yourself until you are able to focus and really, really monetize the podcast, right? So saved money with that, right? And so even though that seems like kind of morbid, it's like, it's actually smart business. Even if you are dealing with like a great season where you're not having any money and you're not having money problems or things aren't changing, it's still smart business to evaluate what you're doing, what you're spending money on. You know what I mean? Because we weren't struggling with finances, but we had lost a lot of money. And we were like, well, instead of us continuing to throw money out the window, let's look and see where we're actually spending our money on, right? That's like even with, I just moved to this apartment. I have this home office. I had an apartment with a home office and I had an office outside the house because I didn't want to be overworking. And that lease was coming to an end. And then my apartment lease was coming to an end. And I kind of said to myself, I like my apartment. I don't love the area. The apartment is smaller and I don't love the area. It's very snooty, if that's the best way to put it. And I wanted to be in the city where it felt like with everyday people, right? Because I'm an everyday person. And so when I was looking for a place, I was like, here's a place much bigger. It's a huge space and it's like all this amazing things that goes along with this community. And it's going to save me money from having the formal office, from paying the money I was paying at the snooty apartment. And I just went down in expenses again. I'm just like, this is the way to go,? And so when things are changing, it's important to like, evaluate everything, don't freak out or whatever, but it's evaluate everything and look at what is it that you need? Like, what do you need first, right? Then what does your company need, right? Then what do the people on your team need, right? And the more you kind of look at those things, it really helps you to process, right? Because one of the things about me is I know if like my house is in disarray, if everything's in disarray, I just can't function. But if I'm able to put everything in a list and I can see, here's all the things that need to be done, right? So that's kind of like right now, my life is not really busy, but last week and the week before that, it was extremely busy. So I had these lists and I was just like, what's the priority? What has got to be done? And then I focused on those things that had to be done and everything else became secondary. People that were emailing, I was like, hey, I'll get back to you in a week or two. I'll, just letting everybody know I got to get back to you because I got to focus on this thing. But I told them I'm dealing with, the launch of our course and I've got to focus on that. I cannot put my attention on this, and this. I don't have it to give, right? Like I even had somebody reach out to me for like moral support and accountability. And I said, I'm really sorry. I don't have that to offer to you right now. I pray that you find that. I'm just not the person that can offer that to you right now. And it's honest, you know what I mean? But when things are changing, it's like you, your company, your team, right? And then getting what it is that you need, okay? Like spending time with your team to find out how are they feeling? What questions do they need to have answered? Are they nervous? How can you reassure them? All this type of stuff that just really helps, with all the changes, okay? Because change is inevitable. Things are always going to change. It's never going to stop. But you can plan for it by having systems, processes, and ways of doing things, not avoiding things, and having conversations with yourself, conversations with friends and mentors, and then the people that may be on your team, and if need be, with your clients, okay? So I hope that this episode was helpful for you. If it was, please let me know. And I will say to you, because we have our new service that we are offering, which is content management. So let me tell you about it a little bit. So what we're going to start doing is, because we have two types of people that always reach out to us. They always want us to create, help them create content, edit the content for them. Other person says, I want the content creation and all that, but I also want you to manage my accounts on social media. Well, we are now offering that as a service, but we are only starting with 5 clients this month, so that way we don't overload ourselves. So if that is you and you are interested in content management or account management, which is content management is us editing for you, and account management is us editing and managing your accounts, okay? If you're interested in that, there's a link in the show notes to my assistant. You can send an email, or it is assistant@keenakelly.com, assistant@keenakelly.com, and we would love to help you with social media. So thank you so much for listening and watching.